Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the cause to all suffering. So this has been a video that has been kind of percolating for a while, just haven't really had the chance to do another one of these insightful videos for my YouTube channel. Been busy with so many things, but finally had some time this evening to talk about this subject, because this is something that comes up quite a bit with a lot of clients that I work with commonly. And just being able to understand that root cause about how suffering itself is triggered. How is it brought into ourselves? When we look at the nature of suffering, well, what is it that suffering as a cause represents? Well, firstly, to understand that suffering is not actually the cause. Suffering is an effect. It's something that has been brewed through a greater cause that many of us may not be aware of. And that particular cause to all suffering is based upon reaction. Reaction is the very cause that makes suffering what it is. Because when we are suffering, it's not just something that is bestowed upon you out of happenstance. When we are able to go into reflecting on the nature of suffering, suffering itself comes through because about how you are able to see the world, how you are able to see, how you are able to witness, how you are able to rather involve yourself with everything that's taking place within your world, about how you've been mistreated, about how you were raised by your parents, about how you interacted with the world, about your values, about your morality, about your beliefs. All of these have been formed through reaction. Well, what do I mean exactly when I say that? Well, let's take a look at the idea of somebody who comes to you and gives you disheartening news, something that just is so impactful. You hear that news and you just feel like your heart has just caved in. Right? You feel like this disheartening news that you've received from someone who you have a great deal of respect for, someone who you value tremendously, has come into your life and told you, oh, I'm sorry, but this has happened. And all of a sudden, you feel like a chasm has entered at the center of your heart, and it's just breaking you down. And then you start to percolate a lot pertaining to that disheartening news that you have received. And now all of these thoughts are just brewing. How could this happen? How could this happen to me? Why does this happen to me? Why does this have to happen to me? How could this have ever done this? I'm a good person. How could this have ever happened to me? And then the emotions start to kick in, and there's more resentment, and there's more bitterness, and there's more anger, there's more frustration, there's a great deal of sadness, and now it starts to turn into depression, and now it starts to brew itself even further into debilitating chronic conditions over time. And so the suffering really did not come into play until we had everything representing that type of person who you have a lot of respect and appreciation for, who you value a great deal, and all of a sudden how that particular type of news, for it to hit you in the way that it did, well, we needed to have everything representing the states of our emotional, mental reactions that caused that particular news to make it feel like we caved in. So the cause to all suffering has always been based upon your reactions. Oh, Brad, come on, that can't be the case. All right. Well, let's look at it in this particular way. What would it feel like if you were without reaction? What would it feel like if you felt that there was absolutely nothing pertaining to people, places, events, or things within your life that could ever impact you, where you would basically just be completely neutral and without reaction, right? Someone comes up to you and says, oh, so-and-so lost his house today. I understand. Now that person is going to start looking at you like you have three heads. I mean, this is our best friend. He lost his house today. Yes, I heard you, and I understand. And that smile on your face stays. Well, that friend is going to be very, very perplexed by you. Like I said, it's kind of like they're looking at you like you're from another planet. But again, what is the difference here? There's the difference between reaction and non-reaction. And when you're looking at the nature of non-reaction, this is something that is making you completely and totally immune to any and all suffering altogether. Now, this, of course, in the modern world is not going to be born overnight. This is something that you want to develop as time progresses, which means you're looking at the deepest, most inconsiderate, or again, tragic, traumatic situations of your life. And you're working with them every single day to soften. You're working with them every single day to lighten them up, to make them feel lighter, which means we're taking a rock and we're turning it into a feather, right? We're taking a brick and we're turning it into liquid, or rather, turning it right into vapor. From the brick into liquid and into vapor. And like I said, that is not going to be something that you're going to achieve within a 24-hour period, 36-hour period, a 72-hour period. No, this is something that is going to take time. It's going to take time to develop. And again, some people may see these experts, or they may even watch movies, TV shows, or read books or anything of that nature about people trying to promise them instant relief when it comes to these traumatic, tragic effects pertaining to suffering that has been caused through our own ability to react. And that is extremely unlikely. Okay? With me doing this work for as long as I have been doing, very few people are able to see these things shift quite quickly. But if they are persistent, and they are continuing to work on themselves, and they continue to soften, they continue to lighten, they continue to move themselves into that complete and total state of non-reaction, hence being in your center, hence surrender. This is what is going to completely alleviate all suffering, the effect of suffering through your life, because you are now clearing away reaction. Okay? Reaction is the cause to all suffering. Because suffering is not a cause, right? Suffering is an effect. And this is something that a lot of people may not have told you. This is something that a lot of people do not even know, right? Oh, we suffer. What's happening to her? Oh, she's suffering. She's suffering. Why is she suffering? Oh, because this happened. And she reacted in the most horrible way, and this is now what has become of her. Okay? Because there's always that question of, well, why is she suffering? Why is he going through such suffering? What happened that made her or him go through this kind of suffering? Do you see that question itself is only telling you that suffering is an effect, not a cause? Okay? So the true cause here is our reactions. It's our reactions based upon our conditioning. Through our conditioning, we have these beliefs, we have these mentalities, we have these attributes, we have all of these particular forms of programs contained within ourselves about why we react a certain way. Because we're brought up in a certain way, we value certain things, we validate certain things. We feel like many of these certain things are our survival. Our survival depends on how we appoint ourselves and how we accommodate ourselves to all of these particular programs and conditionings and beliefs that we have validated within our life. And when any of those particular things get jeopardized, they get jeopardized by our ability to react, right? We react in a certain way because that is the cause. And as that reaction is telling us, oh, we've set off an emotional tripwire here, and now we feel the longing effects of when we feel violated, of when we feel like somebody has crossed the line, of when we feel like that trigger has now fired. And now we are just getting distraught, and now we feel like we are going through weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? To quote a certain popular teacher, right? We are weeping, we are having gnashing of teeth, we are wincing, right? We are depressed, we are angry, we are enraged, we are infuriated, we feel abandoned, we feel rejected, we feel abused, we feel like we just want to run away. We feel like we need to go into addiction and try to escape. Okay? All those traumas are caused by reaction, right? So like I said, when you are non-reacting, you don't feel any of those things pertaining to the nature of suffering, of the effect of suffering through the cause of reaction, right? So when you are therefore non-reacting, doesn't matter if the person has the most sour news that could ever be shared to you. You have spent all of this time softening with every particular facet of yourself. And even when there is something that may grab you for a moment, you have developed the habit of being able to soften the sour news. You have developed the habit of being able to shrink everything down. Okay? And this is not in the idea of what you term as being perfect. Okay? Being perfect has nothing to do with non-reaction. Right? This is not perfection that I speak of. This is the ability not to react. This is the ability to where you are completely understanding what's happened. You're assimilating it, right? You heard it crystal clear. You've listened. But there's nothing here that says, okay, here's bad news. React and create a volcano and explode. Nope. Here's the news. Let it be. Here's the news, and so it is. It doesn't let you get shaken up. That cause of reaction is not there, and through that cause of reaction not being there, there is no effect to the nature of suffering. And so a lot of people here in the world want to ask that question, Brad, how can I get out of suffering? How can I clear away suffering altogether? This is the way. Right? This is really the only way to do it, because you're not going to do it with anything else. Right? A person who is able to become completely and totally non-reacting works with this all the time in the way of softening themselves, in the way of bringing themselves into a state of stillness and being able to surrender. Or Brad, you got to be like some sort of big spiritual master to do that. No, you don't. This has nothing to do with you being a spiritual master. This really all comes down into the nature of simplistic management of the self, right? You're learning to work together with your own self-management. And through your own self-management, you're able to clear away by softening and lightening up these particular tendencies that once caused you to be upset, that you are now starting to soften, lighten up, come into your center, be still, and surrender. Right? What's an example of how I can soften something up? Let's say that again a partner left you, right? A partner that you've been with for several years, and throughout that time, you've been able to work on yourself quite immensely, right? That partner of yours was quite open to having you just have your own time and being able to work with lightening and softening yourself. Okay, I'm kind of giving you an example of what's happened to me in the past as well too, with past partners, right? And so therefore there's a situation that unfolds where maybe I have to leave that partner or that partner decides to leave me. And so when that happens, okay, maybe we may get a little bit of a spark here that says, okay, well, I feel like I have to leave this partner, or I feel like this partner has to leave me. Let's put it in the context where the partner is leaving me, right? where I get a phone call and I say it's over, it's done, I have to be on my own, I have to work on all of this myself, right? And there's that moment where the heart feels a little bit heavy. But at that same moment, you're able to grab a hold of that buzzing sensation in your heart, and you say, wait a minute, what is it that I've been working on myself for these past couple of years to do? And it is to soften, and it is to lighten up. And all it takes is just a cycling of the breath. And you may say, well, I'm sorry that it has come to this. I'm sorry that it did not work out between us, but I also respect that this is what you have to do. I respect that this is where you need to be, and I'm realizing that this is where I need to be as well too. And so there comes that wave of understanding. However the words need to come out is however the words need to come out. Okay? But what happens is, even though you may have felt a momentary lapse where you wanted to react, there's so much of yourself that has enabled you to soften, to lighten up, to catch that curveball that life has thrown at you, and you caught it, right? It was quite an intimidating thing when it was spiraling towards you, but here you take out your catcher's mitt and you catch it, okay? And you guys are not going to get this the first time, okay? You're going to take some time to develop this. You're going to take some time to learn to lighten up and to soften all of these particular tendencies that have been the causal reaction that has led to the effect of suffering. And so you're learning to soften it. How? One of the best ways to do it is just to work with the breath, right? The breath is really all that you need to soften everything. Through the work of the breath, there therefore may be an accompaniment of you being able to talk these things out. I realize that this has happened. I realize I cannot change what has happened to me. And I'm going to work to soften this. I'm going to work to lighten it up. Maybe I may not get 100% of it today, but I'm going to take some time today just to breathe this out, to come to terms that this is something that has been with me for years, and now I'm ready to lighten it up. I'm ready to let this go. I cannot change what has happened to me, but what I can change is I can change exactly how to respond to it. And that is one of the greatest revelations, working together with your breath, accompanying yourself, reminder of the nature of change and how you are able to transform yourself. I cannot control what has been dished out to me by life, but I can control how I respond to it. Not react, but how I respond to it is fully within my control. How I perceive life is completely within my control to work with. And when you have that understanding, that's like your nitro, that's like your rocket fuel, right? And now you're able to look at these big events that have taken place and just following the breath, right? Something as simple as heart rate variability, something as simple as any particular type of pranayama that you feel comfortable in doing. Being able to work with simple exercises, maybe on a physical level, right? Working with yoga asanas, working with qigong, working with tai chi, working with martial arts, right? Working with fitness, whatever it may be. Exercising these things out so that you can soften them, so that you can lighten them, so that the very thing that was the cause to this suffering, that being reaction, is now shrinking down. And maybe you do take care of it very quickly. Maybe it does rear its ugly head over a span of a couple of days. But nonetheless, you are dedicating yourself to softening it up and softening it up and softening it up until it becomes completely and totally non-existence as it represents a reaction-based conflict. Okay? The reaction is now clearing away. And all of the programming surrounding that reaction is clearing away as well. And now we just do this through many things that come up. It's not about saying that you need to do this with every single emotion that you have within yourself, Because if you were to do it that way, you'd be spending many years just trying to resolve emotions. Emotions are not really the problem. Okay? Emotions are actually a very good thing to have. Now, Brad, why do you say that? Well, emotions are like a gauge. They're a monitoring system for yourself. And when that gauge starts going off into the yellow, into the orange, and into the red, this becomes a very strong emotional alert, right? You get very, very angry. Now, you're not trying to dissolve your emotions altogether throughout your entire body. You just can't do it. You have an emotional body. That emotional body is always going to be part of you. But what you are learning to do is you're learning to keep it in the green. Your mental body, right? Mental belief systems, mental challenges, all of these things is always going to be with you. Okay? And there will be times where it will go off in the red. And what can you do? You're working to bring it into the green. Okay? So when you start working together with your emotional body, when you start working together with your mental body, when you start working together with your energy body, your vital body, right? Through the breath, and you're getting out of that state of hyperventilating or giving yourself too many shallow breaths, you're getting out of that altogether and you're balancing the breath. You're balancing your vital body. And it is the subtle bodies themselves that are responsible for everything that is seated within the physical, material body. Okay? So when you are upset about something, it's not really coming in the physical. Okay? Then you're looking at a subtle body reaction. Okay? A subtle body reaction that has been intensified where there can be an emotional explosion. But that emotion is not the problem. It is the tendency behind the emotion. That mentality is not the problem. It's the tendency behind the mentality that is the problem. And again, this is all witnessed through reaction. Okay? Because again, if we try to get too much into mental mechanics, emotional mechanics, it becomes too complicated. Right? We try to utilize all these sophisticated techniques. We start to work with neuro-linguistic programming, and we start to work with all these other forms of advanced programming that's trying to tell you a lot more about your psyche. But that's too complicated in many different ways. There's some times where that can be helpful, but really that causes more of a zigzag, and that puts you back in a maze more than anything else. And really the whole key here is to stick with the science of the simple. And the science of the simple is just to witness your reactions to things. And when you witness your reactions to things, it is the breath itself that is being your savior here. The breath is helping you to calm that intense wave of emotions and mental problems and just starting to level it out. Accompanied with that realization, I cannot change what life is giving me, but I can change about how I respond to it. Okay? And what causes many of us to go into those states of reaction is because we want to make the planet Earth our world. You want to make this world yours. You want everybody else to beat to the rhythm of your own drum. You want others to be like you, so that they are much more susceptible, agreeable, praising you, and so forth. You want to try to control the outer collective world. And my friend, that is absolutely impossible. And that, again, that realization, even though it may feel harsh at first, when you start to look at that and you digest it, you realize that that is the truth. This is not my world. It's not about me. It's about me being able to not only accept what is here in this world, but to welcome it in. And in order for me to firstly accept and then being able to move that into welcoming, I have to look at all of these tendencies that have been caused by reactions that have enabled the effect of suffering upon me. And I need to soften, lighten them up, come into my center, surrender, and bow to myself. bow to the divine within me, bow to the greatness that I am, that I cannot see, because every single one of us has it, right? And this is what I teach a lot of people throughout sessions, because, guys, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been working with tens of thousands of people all over the world. I've heard so much. And one of the majority of things in that sense is really the crux to many of their questions is, Brad, I want to stop suffering. How can I stop suffering? And the key to that is soften your reactions. Soften your ability to react. Do not feel that this is your world, because it's not. Okay? There really is, as it were, your world. But your world as it is with yourself just includes you. Doesn't include anybody else. For you to be completely lucid with your own world is to come to terms with everything that represents yourself. As long as you include something that represents an external person, place, event, or thing, you will never be free of that. Because you think you have to control it. You think you have to manipulate it. You feel like you need to flex your muscles to it a little bit and try to feel like it needs to become tame with you. And it's not going to work. Right? This is what many people are going through. The effect of their suffering is coming from the cause of them reacting because they feel like they can control the world, but it's not working for them. Right? It's exactly why we've had agendas on this planet, where you've had oligarchs, right? You've had these world leaders who feel that they can control the whole world, and now you're seeing their whole foundation crumbling apart. And they had resources on top of resources on top of resources. They have all this authority, yet they can't even do that, right? If they can't do it, what makes you think you can? If they are doing everything they can to try and put together a tyranny, and the people are rebelling against that, and everything in regards to their plans are blowing up in their face, what makes you think that you can do that? Right? This becomes kind of a catch-22 situation. I'm trying to enforce everything within this world to agree with me, but here's these people who have countless resources, who have all this authority and authoritative power, yet they can't even do it. Right? Which means I need to learn to let go. I need to learn to soften. I need to learn to lighten up. I need to learn to come into my center. I need to learn to surrender. I need to learn to bend and be flexible and be malleable to the greatness of myself. And like I said, this has nothing to do with a spiritual teacher. This has nothing to do with a spiritual journey. This is all about you performing self-management, right? Just being aware of yourself, being aware of all those curveballs that have been thrown at you, and now you know how to catch them. Because even though you got some bumps and bruises from these curveballs that have hit you before, you remember every single one of them that has bumped and bruised you, and now you go into every single one of them, and now you soften them. You go in because you don't forget that scar, right? And you go in, and what you're trying to do here is not to resolve these situations on a conscious level. Okay? Oh, Brad, I feel fine, I feel fine, I feel fine. I'm not talking to your conscious self. I'm talking to your subconscious. Because your subconscious is archiving all of this. It is a gigantic memory bank. And it is archiving every single time you've got slung by arrows. You've got thrown curveballs, and it's hit you, and it's bruised you, and it's battered you, right? And every single one of those things are on record. And as long as we continue to react, there's that swelling, throbbing sensation that just causes us to react more and more and more, to dish out more and more suffering, and have that, again, as an effect that takes over us. All that happens on this planet with me is that I suffer. Money problems, right? And I have money problems, and then I suffer with that because I have a certain control factor relating to the externality of finances. I have a problem with finances. I have a problem with paying my rent. I have a problem with my partner. I have a problem with my family. I have a problem with my career. I have a problem with how these world leaders run the planet, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. It never ends. And as long as we have a problem, as long as we react, you're caught up, right? You become the suffering slave. Become the suffering slave because all you do is react to everything. And nothing is resolved. All you're doing is you're heating up that swelling sensation within your subconscious. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, before you know it, you're constantly sick. Before you know it, your immune system drops. Before you know it, you're in so much untold states of misery you don't even know where to begin. Because when you're looking at your subconscious, all we're seeing is swollen, throbbing sensations that are pulsating constantly. And until you learn to start building up that catcher's mitt, by working to be soft, by working to be lighter with yourself, so that you build up that mitt, so as soon as that curveball from life comes at you, I got it. I caught this. I'm not going to go into that state of reaction anymore. I'm now going to lighten up. I'm now going to soften myself. I'm going to come into my center. I'm going to be malleable. I'm going to be able to bend. I'm going to be able to be soft with myself. And I'm going to make peace with something that I've been fighting for so long because I thought I could control it. I thought I could change it using my actions, using my thoughts, and try to change that thing and bend it to my will. Which means what we're doing in that particular situation is we're making ourselves personal tyrants to ourselves. When you have ever mistreated yourself and you have ever mistreated another, you have turned yourself into a personal tyrant, right? You have given yourself a compromised body that can no longer support itself. Its immune system is failing, its organs are failing. Why? Because you've been a tyrant for yourself. And that tyrant is completely ignoring the condition of their body. They are completely ignoring their emotional state. They are completely ignoring their mental state. Everything pertaining to their physicality is being ignored because they're focusing so much on the world, on how somebody has screwed them over, on how their politicians have screwed them over, on how finances have screwed them over, and it goes on and on and on and on in an endless list, right? The whole key is that you need to get out of the drama of life. You need to get out of the feeling that I need to continue to fuel myself with all this drama of life because somehow, some way, I feel like there's going to be some type of change that I can make outside, or somebody comes in and rescues me, or I have to do something to change the world. Whether you rely on hope, or whether you basically give yourself a superiority complex, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to reaction. Every single one of those things is a reaction because of your inner compromised states, emotionally, mentally, energetically, right? It just continues to shroud itself upon you. So the key to resolving the cause to all suffering, that being reaction, is going into yourself and softening yourself up and loosening that ability to feel that you need to change yourself by looking at the external world and thinking that if I can change myself, it's because I can go out into the world and I can change everybody else and then I'll change. No, that's going to be a sinking ship mentality. Okay? You need to build up that catcher's mitt. And that catcher's mitt is built with delicacy. It is built with softness. It is built with compassion. It is built with love. It is built with harmony. It is built with the ability of you being able to manage the self. Now I'm going to start working with my breath. Now I'm going to start doing some work that will benefit me, that will enable me to go within and to do the healing work that I need to do, so that at some particular point I can look back to that very example again. Oh, did you know so-and-so lost his house? I understand. And you're still just smiling, right? So again, this is not the popular path for the world, but it is the true path if you truly want to transcend the state of suffering. Because the majority of the people on the planet right now are still battling, right? They're still trying to fight relating to their own reactions. And it's fighting fire with fire. And it's a dog chasing its own tail. And it's a hamster running the wheel and continuing to do it until the day that their body perishes. And they therefore become reborn again at some particular point, because they need to come back to the scene of the crime and do it again, right? Doesn't matter if you spend thousands of years in spirit. At some particular point, you need to come back to the scene of the crime, and you need to take care of all the things that you have placed upon yourself, representing the hurt, the pain that has been caused through your reactions, generating the effect of suffering. The ability to non-react is not a state of apathy. It is not an unemotional state. It is not something where you feel cocky. It is not something where you feel like you have absolutely no feelings within you whatsoever. In fact, your feelings have heightened. Your ability to care has heightened. But you are not concerned about the events and situations surrounding yourself or for someone you know. You see their soul now. You see their true heart. And that a circumstance is never going to change how you feel about that person. Like so-and-so who has lost their house. I understand. I realize what you're saying. And while those words are coming through, all that's pouring out of you is just that love and that compassion that you have for that particular person. Not because you feel sorry for them, but your ability to have love and compassion for them remains the same because it has always been that way with this person that you know. And an outer circumstance is not going to change the way that you feel them. You're not going to suddenly pity them. You're not going to feel sorry for them all of a sudden because you do not think that they are capable of looking after themselves. It's quite the opposite. When you are a non-reacting being, you are much more loving, much more caring, much more compassionate, much more considerate than you could ever imagine yourself to be. I want you all just to reflect on this video, and if you need to play it back again and again, and look for those little tidbits of what I'm talking about here, because I could really talk about this all night. But to really look at the entire title of this video about the cause to all suffering is reaction. And your remedy past reaction is to learn how to respond and learn how to develop yourself in time to develop non-reaction by softening, by lightening yourself up, by coming to center, by surrendering, by being able to be humble, to be malleable, to be able to be bendable to the greatness that you are. And as you do this with every single thing that has pelted you, causing bruises and bumps and all kinds of lacerations, all of those can be healed once you start to walk that path. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar, and may it be well with you. Goodbye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to New Earth Teachings on YouTube. Don't forget to check out our websites, newearthteachings.com, where you can do private sessions with me, and also etherics.co. And through Etherics, you'll be able to pick up your Healing Code Cards body deck, your mind deck, and your energy deck through Etherics. You will also be able to pick up the Etherbed kit. That is also on Etherics as well. Not to mention that you'll also be able to pick up some apparel and accessories that is also available on Etherex. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next one. Om Shanti 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 Namaskar, and may it be well with you.